Hi, good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the channel and a happy Thanksgiving for everybody in the US that celebrates. So in this video, we're going to discuss why the market is going to have a bullish run in 2026, actually starting December 1st. There's some key dates coming up. So you may have noticed if you all follow Fed and Treasury policy very closely, and you follow, politics and government, there has been things hinted at. The Treasury Secretary and Trump have both said that if Powell doesn't cut rates on the 10th, they have hinted at that there's other things uh, within their toolbox that they can do. So there's one key thing that I want to go over, and I've hinted at it the other day, and some of you in the comments actually nailed it. So there's a key thing happening on December 1st, and I'll just go ahead and tell you what it is. So for the last 4 years or so, we've been on what's called a quantitative tightening cycle. Yeah, I already have. I've had too much. Now I got to get back to doing videos. It's weird, when I'm kind of on vacation and relax a little bit, it's easier for me to like do work actually at the same time. So it's kind of weird. But anyway, so basically QT is ending December 1st, which signals a major reversal and signals getting us back to a QE cycle. And that's going to be huge. And I'll explain QT, QE, and all of that. So let's just go over really quick what the AI gives us. So the Federal Reserve's quantitative tightening program ends on December 1st, which marks a significant shift in monetary policy. Why is this significant? This freezes the Fed's balance sheet, stopping the shrinking process and signaling a transition towards a more neutral monetary stance. I think this is actually the beginning of quantitative easing again. So instead of letting maturing assets run off, the Fed will now roll over the principal from all maturing Treasury securities and reinvest the principal from agency debt and mortgage-backed securities into shorter-term Treasury bills. So they weren't doing that before. So what does this mean? Long story short, end of asset runoff. The Fed will no longer be shrinking its balance sheet by letting its bond holdings mature and disappear. Now they're actually going to be taking those. Balance sheet stabilization. The size of the Fed balance sheet will remain roughly steady. It's probably going to start growing again, although reserves will continue to decline as non-reserve liabilities grow. And then reinvestment strategy. The Fed will reinvest principal from maturing securities into Treasury bills instead of just letting them go, like it said above, to maintain the portfolio's composition, shifting it towards short-dated securities. Impact on markets. This is the big one. This is what you all are here for, right? This change signals, hold on just a second. Hey, welcome. Hold on, let me do some comments really quick here. Welcome. We got a bunch of YouTubers on here. Love it. Yeah, double time. YouTube's paying me time and a half, right? Just for that. It's a higher CPM on Thanksgiving Day. 3 ads on the way. Nice. Oh, thank you all. Thank you all for hitting the like, by the way. Smash that like button because this is big news, actually. The fact that what I think means that we're going back to QE, quantitative easing, that's huge because some of you will remember, like in the Obama years, we were on quantitative easing for like basically 10 years and the market ran straight up. So I think it's awesome. This is really exciting. And so whether or not Papa Powell cuts interest rates, the fact that we go back to QE is going to be massive for the market. So December 1st obviously comes before the 10th, 9 days before. So that's Monday. That's very exciting. And I have a rule of thumb. Any month that begins like with the 1st on a Monday is always a good month. So that's just like one of my rules of thumb. So, okay, impact on markets. This change signals that the Fed believes the economy is stable enough and removes a constraint on liquidity, though it is not an immediate return to quantitative easing. Well, I think it pretty much is. And then interest rates. The end of QT was accompanied by a recent interest rate cut. Market expectations for future rate cuts are being reevaluated in light of economic data. So here's the thing, folks. Whether or not Powell does cut interest rates, QE will have the same effect on the market because it's expansionary monetary policy again. So you're pumping a lot more liquidity into the markets, which it needs. You know how you all hear me say the markets have no juice right now? Well, the markets are going to start getting some of that juice back that they need with an easing policy. Now, the tightening was done to combat inflation, but as you all know, I think that the Fed impact on inflation is a broken model. I get the Volcker concepts, from the 80s, when he raised interest rates like above 10% and stuff, but that may have worked back then. But I think right now, and I'm going to be a little bit opinionated here, but I think we don't have an inflation problem. We have corporate price gouging phenomenon. Whether you go to, certain gas stations, when crude oil is basically below $60 a barrel, and Costco near me charges 2.58 a gallon, and you've got the gas station across the street charging 3.20, something a little strange there. And then you got prices at certain stores and stuff that are just astronomical. And when they mention tariffs, I'm starting to ask them which specific tariff is making the price of this good go up. Now, if it's coffee or if it's beef or something like that, there were specific tariffs that were just paused. But my opinion, this inflation thing, the same policy prescriptions that worked in the past don't necessarily work now. In my opinion, the whole tightening thing didn't really work because we're still like 50% higher than we were. I know they had the thing that said Thanksgiving dinner this year was like 25% lower. Maybe that's true in some cases, but I still see things way higher. So regardless of whether the prescription has worked or not to combat inflation, I think we're still going to be at a, we're going back to quantitative easing. Whether it's worked or not, they've tried. Whether the surgery worked or not, we're going back to quantitative easing, which I think is actually great news. So let me do a little bit more here on quantitative easing. Let's see this here. It comes up with jerk for some reason. That's funny. Quantitative jerk. That'd be a good YouTube name, right? Okay, so let me explain a little bit to you all about what quantitative easing is. And I know this is boring. It's probably going to put some of you to sleep, but go get a cup of coffee because this is important. This is why your stocks are going to print money next year. So this is important. The boring macroeconomic nuanced stuff is why your stocks are going to go up. So this should get you fired up, actually. So quantitative easing is a monetary policy tool where a central bank purchases large quantities of assets, such as government bonds and mortgage-backed securities, to inject money into the economy and stimulate growth. If you listen to Besant talk, the Treasury Secretary, you listen to Trump, you listen to other people in the administration, they are talking constantly about how there's other things at their disposal that they can do if Powell doesn't cut rates, right? Well, this is a big one. So it's used to lower long-term interest rates, increase the money supply, and encourage borrowing and spending when conventional monetary policy is ineffective. And it seems like it kind of somewhat has been, right? The goal is to lower inflation. So the goal, interestingly enough, the goal of quantitative easing is also to lower inflation and combat economic downturns by making it easier for consumers and businesses to get loans. It's a huge boost. It's like a stimulus for the economy. So how it works, you've got about 6 things here. Asset purchases. The central bank creates new money to buy assets from commercial banks and other financial institutions. Increase liquidity. This process increases the amount of reserves at commercial banks, which boosts liquidity in the financial system. Liquidity is huge for the financial system. Lowering of interest rates. By purchasing assets, the central bank increases their price and lowers their yield, which pushes down other long-term interest rates, including those for mortgage and corporate bonds. And they've hinted at this. Remember, they've said there's other mechanisms we can push interest rates down. This is one of the big ways. Encouraging spending. Lower interest rates make it easier, make it cheaper for consumers to borrow for things like homes and cars, obviously, and for businesses to borrow for expansion and investment. That's why I've always said raising rates in a sense causes inflation. You've got higher mortgages, higher home equity loans, higher car loans, so on and so forth. Lower rates are great, I think, and encourages spending and then stimulating the economy. This increased borrowing and spending can lead to greater demand for goods and services, job creation, and overall economic vitality. Now, a downside that it lists also is inflation and asset bubbles. So this can happen at the top of the cycle, but we're not. Hopefully, we're on the verge of another. We're not at the end of the bubble, maybe at the beginning is what I'm hoping. So it can disproportionately benefit the wealthy because wealthy own stocks, right? I mean, we got people like, Rod and Health and Wealth, on here, like I say, wealthy people own stocks, right? A little bit of a joke, guys, but just had to throw that in there. So, yeah, it can cause more inflation, asset bubbles, some income inequality, and impact on central bank balance sheet. It can result in central banks holding more long-term assets financed by short-term liabilities, potentially exposing them to risk when interest rates rise. So hopefully we're a long way away from that. Oh, yeah, thank you. If you want to reach out to me one-on-one, if you want a one-on-one session, contact me either on Discord or via my email. Well, I think inflation is going to go up regardless because inflation goes up because the people that control the price of goods decide it's going to go up. But yeah, thanks for commenting. So yeah, that's pretty much the gist of it. That's why I'm very bullish when the market opens again, you see the market's been going up this week. I think the market's anticipating this. And I had some conversations this week, and a few folks reminded me that this was in the works. I had actually forgotten about this, but the mainstream media hasn't really picked up on this yet, but I think it's going to be huge. So comment away if you all think this is going to be huge for the markets, as I think it will. And have a happy Thanksgiving with your families, and enjoy the day. I got to make my second appearance now. So thank you all for tuning in. Like, comment, and subscribe, and join Discord. Get a one-on-one session with me if you so want. We got a great opportunity right now. A lot of stuff's on sale. The market, I believe, is headed for an upswing. So thank you all, and have a great rest of your day. Take care. Bye.